Welcome back to another episode of the Dandelion podcast, where we talk to the best facilitators, organizers, and hosts using the Dandelion platform at dandelion.events. My name is Stephen Reed, and in this episode, I speak to Osara from Ecstatic Dance Bristol and Ace Collectiv. Osara founded Ecstatic Dance Bristol in 2019, and since then, he has been innovating with new event formats that combine the sexy, silly, and spiritual with the aim of creating powerful containers for authentic connection. In our conversation, Osara shares his journey from the mainstream club and party scene to the world of alcohol-free intentional dance events. We discuss the importance of creating a strong sense of community and safety, the role of ritual and ceremony, and how to take people on a transformational journey through music. Osara also gives us an exciting glimpse into his plans for Ace Collectiv, including equinox parties and a new Era Rave at one of Bristol's top clubs. So get ready to be inspired by a facilitator who is truly pushing the boundaries of conscious dance. Here's my conversation with Osara. So I am delighted to be joined today by Osara, who is the founder of Ecstatic Dance Bristol and Ace Collectiv. How are you doing, Osara?
I'm well, I'm okay. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good, thanks. I've been looking forward to this conversation. So I was going to first ask, where are you? How are you? And maybe you can tell us then a bit about who you are and what you're doing right now.
Thank you. So where am I? I'm in Stroud at Temple Farm. It's the community place that I live in. How am I?
Yeah.
I'm noticing I feel a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
And also feel quite excited about this conversation with you, Stephen.
Nervous and excited. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw that the first event of Ecstatic Dance Bristol and Dandelion was July 2020. So it's almost been 4 years. And that was, I guess, just as we were emerging from lockdown, or maybe not even emerging from lockdown. But there were a few small underground things going on back in those days, weren't there? So
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, we've mentioned these two organizations already, Ecstatic Dance Bristol and Ace Collectiv. So maybe you could just say a little bit more about what you're doing right now, including a reference to those organizations.
Yeah. So yeah, I founded Ecstatic Dance Bristol in 2019. I've been running events through that organization all that time. And then yeah, there was a big conversation with you actually. I forget when it was, a few years ago, where we talked about the Psychedelic Society and Dandelion, and I was, yeah, a bit unclear about where to take ecstatic dance because I felt that I was doing a lot of other events which weren't just simply ecstatic dance. So yeah, you helped me have this idea of creating another organization which all these other events that I was doing could fit under. So at the moment, I'm actually going through a big transition between, yeah, the Ecstatic Dance organization and Ace Collectiv, and actually transitioning all my followers and my social media account onto the Ace Collectiv. And then Ace Collectiv is this umbrella organization, which everything that I do in relation to these two organizations is just going to, yeah, sit within that. Also including, yeah, my DJing and the mentoring and coaching that I do.
Okay, so you mentioned your DJing there. Maybe you could say a little bit more about that, because I have the sense that that's been going pretty well at late and taking you to some interesting places.
Yeah. So really, really interesting question. So essentially, Rene Lacroix founded Ecstatic Dance UK in London around just over 5 years ago now. And I was the first DJ to DJ at her first Ecstatic
But
Dance.
wait, let's go back even a bit further. Like, how did you become a DJ? Like, how did you get into music? Like, how did you learn the skills? I'd be curious to hear a bit about that.
Well, when I was a teenager, yeah, drum and bass and electronic dance music was really popular in the small Welsh town of Carmarthen that I was growing up in. And yeah, it's very popular. So a lot of my friends were into that, and I started DJing then. And I remember going to one of the clubs in Carmarthen, and there was a youth project where they were teaching young teenagers to how to DJ. So I remember going to a course and I must have only been there for an hour. And that was the only session I actually ended up going to, but it actually taught me some of the fundamentals of DJing, which I still have carried with me since then. So that was a long time ago. So that was when I was 16. I'm now 36. That's
And
20 years.
that was a pretty chance encounter in a way, was it? You just happened to go to this DJ workshop.
Exactly, yeah. And it
Wow.
was very, humble, nothing too exciting. It was, yeah. So DJing then was more at free parties and clubs, and it was a hobby. And I was DJing on vinyl and was very much into drum and bass and jungle, and I guess the kind of harder genres and styles. And then I moved to Bristol when I was 19, and then continued DJing kind of on and off as a hobby. Played some pretty interesting parties and clubs, and then I kind of let it settle for a bit. As a
And so far, this is not alcohol free, and in the way that the Ecstatic Dance Bristol events now are, right? This is a kind of mainstream club party environment.
Exactly, and I remember going to a really famous club in Bristol called Blue Mountain, and so I get there, I'm doing my set, and I'm not getting paid. I'm just doing it for mates. And then I want to get a drink, and they're like, I was like, oh, can I get a drink? And they're like, yeah, there you go. And then behind the DJ decks, there's just like a full 24 pack of beers, Red Stripe for the DJs. And I'm like, oh, I just really don't want to drink Red Stripe beer. So I go to the bar and I just get myself a little ginger beer. So I remember then I was having this awareness of like wanting to be focused on my DJing and focused on the craft, not drinking or taking drugs. I was really, yeah, passionate about the art of DJing and playing great music in that club environment. So yeah, that was definitely a very different time compared to the ecstatic dance.
So now we can fast forward a bit. You met Renee from Ecstatic Dance London. Was that kind of your first taste of the ecstatic dance scene and like sober dance scene?
Exactly. So I discovered embodiment and conscious dance through Five Rhythms in Bristol. And I remember going to classes like every week when I discovered it. And it was really transformational for me actually when I was in my late 20s. And then after a few years, I was like, wow, I can do this. So I actually put my first event together in Bristol, which is called Osara Dance and Sound. And this was before I'd ever heard of ecstatic dance. And what's really interesting about that is that, yeah, I had no idea what ecstatic dance was. And I just did this event where I DJ'd and created it, and the tickets were like £5, and I drew the flyer by hand and photocopied it and sent it around to my people that I knew. And it went really well. I had like 30 people there. People said, "Oh wow, when's the next one?" That was really cool. So that was the kind of start.
And what year was this, more or less?
That must have been 7 years ago, 2017.
Okay, so they're the real like the very beginnings of the organizations that you're now involved with in a way, yeah.
Yeah, the first event. And then what happened then was I started recording mixes, and then I met somebody in Scotland called Bernice Frabis, who, yeah, long story short, she was like, oh, I sent her one of my DJ mixes, and she's like, oh wow, you're actually like pretty good at DJing. I was like, well, thanks. And then Renee, who had come from a training with Bernice, an ecstatic dance training, I think it was in Guatemala. Renee then returned to the UK and founded Ecstatic Dance UK about just over 5 years ago now. And Bernice gave my contact to Renee and said, hey, by the way, if you're looking for a DJ, I reckon this guy can do a really good job.
So you then got this invite from Renee to play at an Ecstatic Dance UK event in London, is that right?
Yeah, at the Bath.
How did it go?
It was amazing. It sold out, and it was a big initiation for me, and because I was still fairly new to ecstatic dance, and Renee facilitated, and then I did the ecstatic dance DJ journey, and that was it. Very simple. very humble days. And now, I don't know if you know, but the Ecstatic Dance UK and the Baths has been running there for about almost 5.5 years. And it's one of the most successful ecstatic dances in the UK. So it's very, very popular. It sells out every Sunday. And I'm their longest serving resident DJ, which I'm feel really honored to be. So
Nice. Great. Okay, so that was 2019. And at this point, Ecstatic Dance Bristol doesn't quite exist, although you had been running similar events. So what was the very first Ecstatic Dance Bristol event?
So because of that introduction to Rene, I then started asking a lot of questions to Rene and essentially Bernice, who, she was really supportive. She said, "Oh, maybe you could set up Ecstatic Dance Bristol." And as I said, at that point, I didn't really know what ecstatic dance was. And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe. Yeah, okay, I'll think about it." And then I ended up setting it up about a few months after Rene founded Ecstatic Dance UK. And my first event in
after you had played this set in London with her facilitating, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so I did my first event in Bristol, the launch of Ecstatic Dance Bristol, and it was a huge success. It sold out. It was in a really beautiful venue, and then I was like, wow, okay, this is a thing.
So this is probably what, late 2019 or something, maybe just before the pandemic, or?
Yeah, exactly. It must have. I remember it being February. I think it was February 2019.
Oh, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very beautiful. And what I really love about that was how there was no other ecstatic dance in Bristol at the time, and there was definitely not any dances on Sunday morning. Like, I bet even events, really, it was very rare or very unusual to do an event or a session of any kind, really, on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It's got a big party and club culture in Bristol, and Sunday morning is the time then most people are going to bed after their clubbing.
Yeah.
So it really surprised me, and it was a huge success. And then I guess I've just been going.
So tell us a bit more about what exactly inspired you to start Ecstatic Dance Bristol, because you had actually, been in quite a different world. You've been in this like mainstream party world. Like, what was it about your experiences, maybe at Rene's event and maybe Five Rhythms also, that made you think you want to go in that direction?
I remember I was studying architecture in university in my late 20s, and I was driving home one night and I was listening to some music and I was playing Rage Against the Machine, and I started singing along to the lyrics, and then I started like shouting along to the lyrics, and then I started like screaming, and I was like, wow, I've got a lot of energy. I feel like I need to really move this energy, release this energy somehow. So that's actually how I discovered Five Rhythms. And I think that's a really important part of this whole journey, is for me, especially for my kind of healing and self-development journey, is how can I go somewhere where I can listen to music, I can dance, and I can also like express myself, in a safe place and authentically, and release any kind of energy and emotions which are not, I don't want to keep them inside and let them stagnate, but I want to be able to move them. So that became really clear to me with Five Rhythms. And then of course ecstatic dance is a very similar.
I mean, sometimes, you can go to a club on a Saturday night where people are getting pretty expressive in a way. So why was it important that it was alcohol free and daytime, or even Sunday mornings, as you described?
Because I feel that in club nights and festivals where there's alcohol and drugs, I feel that in the UK culture of clubbing and raving, it's very yang, and it can be very masculine and very messy, actually, and quite chaotic. And it definitely lacks the more feminine aspects of music and celebration and being together as a community. And also I find that the held spaces of ecstatic dance and Five Rhythms and these other conscious events, I feel that there's much more space for the feminine and much more space for it to be in a contained space where there can be like resistance and triggers and maybe a bit of chaos, but it's kind of held and safe to really, honor those parts. So
Yeah. And my understanding, there's often kids at these ecstatic dance events, and sometimes even at Five Rhythms and some,
yeah,
and I know you do that. I know that you're a father yourself, so I wonder whether that was part of it as well.
definitely. And I feel it's a really good point, because that's another thing that I've been really passionate about, is creating events where parents can come and carers of children, and they can even bring their children along, and we can have, it's a daytime event, and there's like an incredible kid space where the kids can play and be entertained, and then the parents can dance in front of like big speakers and DJs and have a dance, because I feel that a lot of parents, become disconnected from that, from the community of dance and music, which perhaps they were connected to when they were in their clubbing days. But as a parent, it becomes a lot more challenging to can't really go out so much on Saturday night and get drunk or take drugs, and got your children to wake up to the next morning. So I find again the events have been really successful in Bristol with parents, especially the New Year's Day event and other daytime events where it's more accessible to a wider audience.
So some other elements that you include in your events, as far as I understand, are things like cacao ceremonies and sound baths, most generally kind of ritual and ceremonial elements. Can you speak a little bit more about that and what's important about ritual in the context of the events?
That's an interesting question. I feel, for me personally, I feel very connected to ritual and ceremony, and having done plant medicine ceremonies, and also connecting with my roots as somebody of Celtic, Anglo Scottish descent, and taking opportunities to really connect with something kind of deeper within myself, and also something deeper outside of me. And it feels very connected to nature as well, especially when we do events that are connected to the moon cycles and connected to the Sabbats, which are the wheel of the year that we have here in the UK from pagan Celtic culture.
And indeed, your last event was at the spring equinox. So was there some mention of the equinox and the wheel of the year at that event, for example?
Exactly. Yes, and it was, for me, what I see, the wheel of the year that has these 8 festivals, 8 celebrations. It's an opportunity to, of course, like each celebration has its unique quality, and the spring equinox has its unique quality of equal day, equal night, and then also it's also just an opportunity to come into celebration at these specific times. And that's what we were doing. It was a celebration, a party, and we had an altar, and we also had a piece around it at the opening. We had like an opening circle with like an opening prayer. And it's something fairly new that I'm working with, so I'd like to include it in future events. So I've got equinox parties that we have happening this year and continuously.
Nice. So you mentioned that opening circle, and I understand that something that is important to you as an organizer is to create this strong container and this real sense of community and safety at your events. So maybe you could speak a bit more about why you feel that's important and some of the ways that you're doing that.
Yeah, I feel like it's very inspired actually from the ecstatic dance format, and so I really give thanks to ecstatic dance for that, because I was explaining it to my work colleague today actually. So with the ecstatic dance, it's a very straightforward format of, there's some warm-up music, then there's a opening circle, then there's the opening circle is where they share the guidelines for ecstatic dance and any housekeeping. creating the container for the session. And then there's like an embodiment piece where a facilitator leads people through like an embodiment journey. Then there's a DJ aspect, DJ journey. Then there's usually a sound bath, and then there's a closing circle. And that can happen in the space of like 2.5 hours, 3 hours. And I've experienced really transformational journeys either by like facilitating that or attending that. And I just feel like they're very powerful containers. And so I feel like what I've done then is like taken that format and then applied it and transitioned it into bigger, longer events. And for example, the New Year's Day event, which happens from midday to 9:30, so it's like a 9 or 10 hours event. We have a soft opening, doors open, but then there's like an opening circle near the beginning and then a closing circle at the end. So it's I feel like that containment really adds so much value compared to an event where you just turn up to a club and people just arrive when they want. And there's no real like beginning and end. It's just like I find that really interesting.
And you mentioned their ecstatic dance guidelines as well. And I understand that EDB and now Ace Collectiv has some suggestions, guidelines, rules. So yeah, what are some of the key points there for you?
Yeah, this has been a very interesting realm actually over the last few years. It's mainly the safer space agreement, which is something that I've been really working on really deeply. And essentially the top line with the safer space agreement is that it's inviting everybody that comes to the event to agree that they are taking responsibility for themselves and their own experiences. And then at the same time, creating a field where the whole community that are coming to this event feel welcome to be themselves and safe and included. So we really want to make sure our events are inclusive. That means, for queer, non-binary, male body, female body people, whoever feels like they want to join this event, we want to make sure that we include everybody. And with that, we have a whole spectrum of sensitivities, and really these safe space agreements are in place to make sure that we can include all those different sensitivities and have protocol and safeguarding in place so that if anything does happen, if anybody has any issues or experiences any behavior that they feel is inappropriate, then as a community we can act upon that and make sure that things are being flagged to us so we can address them, and if need be we can ask people to leave the event, which we haven't had to do yet. And so it feels like a really, really strong piece that's very important.
Thank you. So some of the other elements of Ace Collectiv now that you mentioned are authentic connection, soul invigorating ceremony and celebration, and respect for self, community, and planet. So and anything more there in terms of some of the vision and values?
So what I've been learning by doing these events for the last few years is that they're more than just coming to a venue and listening to a DJ and listening to some live music. These events are really places where we give opportunities for people to really journey and be with different parts of themselves. And for that reason, I find that they're very powerful and very transformational events. And then once we go into those kind of like deeper, darker places of self, we can then come through that and then come into other aspects of other feelings like joy and celebration and connection.
The 5 Rhythms dance journey is very much geared to that in a way, isn't it? Like taking people through this journey of these different rhythms, which gets quite intense, and then you kind of come out the other side. And so is that often an aspect in your DJ sets and the DJ sets that are being played? Does the music help to facilitate that kind of journey for people, would you say?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I actually find that the curation of the whole event is just one big, I don't know, maybe there's like several waves going on, but there's like these waves. And starting like settled, and then it kind of builds up, and then maybe there's like some peak, and then it kind of settles again. But the way I curate the DJs is by not having lots of DJs close to each other that are just like all kind of high energy, but having like some variation, so there's like opportunities just to like take a breath and take a moment, take a break.
Mm.
Definitely, I feel really passionate about that, and I do that with all my events. There's always considering the whole journey from beginning to end.
Mm. Nice. So yeah, it sounds at best you're hoping these events can actually entail personal and maybe even collective transformation, and that
Yeah.
they're more than just having a good time. You were telling us at the start of this conversation how transformative Five Rhythms had been for you, and so in a way it feels that you've been inspired by that practice and practices like it, and you're updating it for the modern context or the context of younger generations,
Mm.
perhaps. So with that in mind, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you have planned with Ace Collectiv.
Yeah, things are really going from strength to strength, and we've been using this beautiful venue in Bristol, the Mount Without, which is this really beautiful 900-year-old church. It's just one of the best things. I love it so much. It has a sprung wooden floor, underfloor heating, and yeah, very beautiful architecture. So I'm going to be doing the equinox parties, so spring equinox and autumn equinox. So those equinox parties twice a year in the Mount Without, and that's actually a very specific concept which we didn't touch on too much today, but it's a new concept that I'm working with myself and my home mates, actually, where I live, is combining like sexy, silly, and spiritual.
Hmm.
And I know that a lot of my friends in my networks, we are involved in like different areas of self-development. I have definitely been more connected to like spiritual development. And I'm quite new to the more like silly, playful stuff, and then also the more like sexual stuff, like Tantra and Ista. So the Equinox party was actually it was an event where we combined these three spheres of sexy, silly, and spiritual, and it was a little bit edgy for some, and also incredibly successful. So,
Will you tell us a bit more about how those three elements came into that event then?
so in terms of silly, there's inviting in play and playfulness, and not taking ourselves too seriously, so we can have the spirituality, the kind of prayer, the prayerfulness, and the intentionality and ceremony and the altar, and then creating that, but then not the whole event just being heavily spiritual. It's like, how can we invite in some play and some fun as well? So we invited everybody to like dress up, and we had all kinds of different outfits that people were showing up with. And then the sexy was, we had Freya McFarlane lead a very like kind of sensual embodiment piece, which was not just ecstatic dance, but more kind of just going into the deeper levels of like sensuality with oneself. And then we actually had a few additional things for this event. We had a feather lounge, which was again something about around sensuality and people exploring different kinds of touch with feathers, and that was really successful. And then we had a cuddle corner, which again is something to explore with like intimacy and touch. And these two spaces were facilitated with a team, and they both went really well actually. So there was a real combination of beautiful things happening in one event, and it was a
Nice.
huge success. So we're going to do that again.
Great. Well, that really gives a sense of how you're innovating, certainly
Yeah.
beyond the kind of, Five Rhythms and ecstatic dance, but like, yeah, bringing some quite different elements. And that's really exciting to hear that's going well. So then the next event will be the autumn equinox then, or is there something happening before then?
Yeah, so I've got another concept called New Era Rave. This is a concept I've been working with like on and off for a while, and it's essentially, yeah, like what we've talked about today, bringing that into a club environment where we have an incredible sound system, amazing like club DJs, and also bringing in intentionality. And it's like an alcohol-free event, and there's going to be a kids space, and there's going to be like an opening workshop to invite in connection and authentic play.
Yeah, this is all happening at a legit club in Bristol.
Yeah, it's actually one of the best clubs in Bristol, and it's the first alcohol-free event they've ever done. So
Wow.
feeling really excited about it. But it's been quite hard to find venues that can. It's been challenging to find club and live music venues where you can do alcohol-free events. Pretty much none of them are interested because it's actually how they make most of their money on the bar. So it's been quite challenging to find venues in Bristol to do these kind of events.
Nice. Well, we're almost coming to time here, so maybe I'll end with asking you, for someone that has never been to Ecstatic Dance or Ace Collectiv events before, what would you say to them as an invitation to step in and experience it for themselves?
Yeah, the best thing about Bristol is that it's an incredible community, and I think something that I feel really grateful for is that, yeah, anything goes. Whatever you feel like wearing, whatever you feel like bringing, whatever kind of music you like, whatever, if you like the slow or the fast. I feel like these events, there's something for everybody, and so yeah, be prepared to be surprised, and yeah, just come and try it out and see how you feel.
Thank you so much, Osara. It's been an absolute pleasure. So yeah, thank you for your time today, and yeah,
Yeah.
really all the best with these projects. Hopefully you enjoy using the Dandelion web platform for for many months to come.
And I just want to honor, yeah, you, Stephen. Thank you so much for providing Dandelion, and I feel that it's been such a supportive and powerful platform for myself and actually a lot of other people now. Since I started using it in Bristol, a lot of other organizers have started using it as well. And so I just want to honor you, and yeah, thank you so much. You've been such a huge support of this journey.
Nice one. That's very kind. And yeah, I really hope that, well, more than hope, I know that Dandelion is more than the platform. There really is a kind of community of organizations, a community of facilitators that sometimes, go facilitate or DJ at each other's events. And that's what makes me most excited and most happy to see that, yeah, there's a community or even a kind of a culture emerging around it. And so, yeah, let's see where it goes. Nice one.
Amazing.
Take care.
Thank you so much.